Hi everyone. Okay, we are back and we're going to continue to work out these trigonometric ratios, which you guys know, I already told you, these are my favorite, right? Today what we're going to focus on is we're going to introduce sine and cosine, and we're going to apply those trigonometric functions to solve some problems. Now, you still might see the tangent functions, so as you guys follow along with me, I'm going to show you some tricks and tips to figure out when do I use which function. All right, so let's go take a look at our notes. Now, guys, on the front of your notes, about halfway down, you guys will see that we talk about the sine function, the sine ratio. And, okay, it is abbreviated S-I-N. It is not pronounced sin. It's pronounced sine. Guys, this is just the abbreviation. Now, notice that the sine function says that we take the opposite side length over the hypotenuse. Now, when we did the tangent function on our last assignment, we did opposite over adjacent. So do you guys see that the ratios are going to change a little bit on us, aren't they? Okay, so sine is opposite over hypotenuse, and the cosine, okay, ratio, which is abbreviated COS, okay, cosine is going to be adjacent over hypotenuse. Now, guys, just as a refresher, okay, remember, you've got to label your reference angle and then label your opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse in order to know which trig function to use at which time, okay? Now, let's go and look at the second page of our notes, and then we're going to do a little bit of review, and then I'm going to introduce a new type of angle relationship to you. All right, I'll see you there in just a second. Okay, y'all, do you remember that in our last video, I talked about angle of elevation, right? That's if I'm looking straight out and then I look up, right? Well, now we're going to introduce angle of depression. Well, let's think about that. Elevation typically means to go up. Depression means to go down. So our angle of depression, if you guys will see here, is between the horizontal line of sight and when we look down. Now, guys, check this out, okay? So the angle of elevation and the angle of depression, okay, are alternate interior angles. And that's because, and I'm going to highlight this, okay, our horizontal line of sight up here and the horizontal line of sight down here, hey guys, those are parallel lines, okay? When we talk about horizontal lines, it doesn't matter where they're at, they're going to be parallel because they're both horizontal, okay? Now, they are alternate interior because our line of sight right here is the transversal, okay? So if you guys will see, and I'm actually going to draw it in here, okay? The angle of depression, which is up here, and the angle of elevation, which are down here, okay? Guys, those are alternate interior angles, so they have to be congruent. Oh, so think about this. Guys, if you've ever been out in the commons, okay, and you're down in the commons and you look up towards the library and you have a friend up there and you guys make eye contact and you're like, hey, what's up, bruh? Right? So when you guys are looking up and looking down at each other, you're looking at the exact same angle because your line of sight creates a transversal to where you are. So up at the library looking down, that's angle of depression. In the commons looking up, that's angle of elevation. Okay, so now there's something else that I'm going to talk to you guys about with the angle of depression. When we draw the angle of depression, and let me go on down right here, okay? When we typically draw the angle of depression, notice it is not going to be inside the triangle, okay? So, having said that, what did I just say was true about both the angle of depression and the angle of elevation? What did I say is true about their measurements? Yeah, guys, the angle of elevation and the angle of depression are congruent. So if they're congruent, if I give you guys the angle of depression, it's going to be congruent to the angle of elevation inside the triangle. okay? And if we ask you to find the angle of depression, well, if you find the angle of elevation, it's congruent. Okay, now, guys, pay close attention to this because we're going to do an example together here in just a second where we're actually going to draw out what this looks like. And I want you guys to notice, okay, right here is our triangle. And if you guys notice, here are my opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. And I labeled that with the angle of elevation being my reference angle, okay? All right, so we've learned a couple new terms. Let's go put them into practice. Okay, so, excuse me, guys, let's go down. Hey, guys, I want to start with number 8. So let's go down and look at number 8 together. Alrighty, now, for number 8, notice, guys, we got to read the instructions, right? So it says on numbers 5 through 8, we're going to label the adjacent, opposite, and hypotenuse, and we're going to put a box around each label, or that is the ratio. Then we're going to find the value of each variable, either using sine, cosine, or you might even use tangent. Okay, so just because this is sine and cosine today, okay, don't get distracted. You might actually use tangent. How do we know when to use what? Well, let's go look. Down here at number 8, let me move my screen down for us. Okay, down here at number 8, okay, the very first step that we want to do, okay, you want to label your reference angle. Okay, so I'm going to label my reference angle. My reference angle typically is the acute angle that has been given to you. And in this case, guys, 17 is our reference angle. Okay, then I'm going to label opposite, hypotenuse, and adjacent. So just in case we need some more practice, okay, I'm going to work this with you guys. So remember, okay, and I'm going to point to it right here, across from our reference angle. This side right over here, the 7.6 is going to be our opposite. So I'm going to label that my OPP, okay? And across from the 90 degrees is always, always, always going to be your hypotenuse. So I'm going to label that my HYP. And what's left over, which is always right next to your reference angle, is your adjacent. So here is my ADJ. Okay, how do we know what formula to use? How do we know which function to use? Hey guys, start with what you know. Start with the side length that you were given. Okay, so start with, you're going to ask yourself, what do I have? Okay, I have the opposite side. What do I want? Well, in this case, I'm solving for x. I want this side. Okay, so we have the opposite. We want the hypotenuse. To help us figure out which of the trig functions to use, we can look at our formula chart, we can look at our flip chart, or you can even write this down on the top of each of your papers to help you remember some of the ratios. All right, check this out, y'all. Okay, so I'm going to write down SOHCAHTOA, SOHCAHTOA. All right, this is sine equals opposite over hypotenuse, cosine equals adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent equals opposite over adjacent. Okay, SOHCAHTOA. I know it sounds weird. Okay, so, but this helps us to remember which function. Remember, S is sine, C is cosine, T is tangent, O stands for opposite, H stands for hypotenuse, and A stands for adjacent side. Okay, so let's see. We have the opposite, we want the hypotenuse. So if I come over here and look at my ratios, opposite and hypotenuse, hey guys, that's the sine function. So I'm going to use the sine function to solve this. So here's what it would look like when we set it up. Remember, we do the trig function, which is sine is what we want, of our reference angle, which is 17, sine of the angle equals our ratio, opposite over hypotenuse. So our opposite side is 7.6 and our hypotenuse is x. Okay, so we practiced this yesterday. Do you guys remember, or not yesterday, but our previous assignment, we put the sine of 17 over 1 and we're going to cross multiply and solve. I'm going to go ahead and work this one out with you guys. Okay, so when we multiply, remember this goes in parentheses. Okay, we're going to have x times the sine of 17 equals 7.6 times 1 is just 7.6, okay? And to get x all by itself, we have to divide both sides by the sine of 17. So x equals 7.6 divided by the sine of 17. Okay, now, do you guys remember how to put this in your calculators? All right, so go do that right now. Go put that in your calculator, and I want you guys to tell me, what do you guys get for the value of x, and make sure you pay attention to what did the instructions say to round to. All right, tell me what you got. Okay, I got that x was 25.99, which when I round to one decimal place, guys, the 9 rounds up this other 9 to a 0, and then that 0 rounds this guy up, so x is 26.0 to the 10th place. Okay, all right, now we've solved for x. Great, now let's solve for y. Now what you guys are going to see me do is I'm going to go through the same process. I'm going to say, what do I have, what do I want, but this time I'm going to use a different color. Okay, well, this time I'm still going to start with what I have. Start with your given information. I have the opposite, which is 7.6, but this time I want y, which is the adjacent. Okay, guys, look at our trig functions over here. Okay, which trig function uses opposite and adjacent in the ratio? What do you guys think? Did you guys say tangent? And why? Why is it tangent? Because, guys, tangent uses opposite and adjacent. So because we have the opposite, we want the adjacent, this time we're going to use tangent. Okay, I'm going to help you guys set this up. Now, we do tangent of the angle, which is 17, equals, now our opposite side is the 7.6, and our adjacent side is y. Okay, now, guys, I want you to practice this, and I want you guys to go solve it and tell me, what do you get for y? All right, y'all, check and see if you're on the right track. Okay, notice my work here. Okay, and I know my handwriting. I know, guys, I'm sorry. It's hard to write on this thing. So I've got that eventually I come over here, and y equals 7.6 divided by tan 17. So 24.85, which rounds to 24.9. And guys, we don't have any units, so we just leave it as 24.9. Okay, all right, so guys, what we just did, and I'm going to recap here. We have to ask ourselves, where do we start? We start with the reference angle. We label the opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. Okay, put a box around them. Then we ask ourselves, what do we have? And what do we want? Okay, and that helps us to figure out, based upon what we have and what we want, then which trig function should we use? Okay, all right, now I'm going to do a couple more with you, and they're going to be more of like the word problems. So I'm going to help you guys get these set up. Let's go take a look at number 10. All right, go take a look at number 10 with me. All right, let's read through this one. Okay, there's a lot of information here. We got to figure out where to put everything. Okay, so the very first thing that it tells me is that a drone is 6 meters off of the ground. So that means it's already above the ground. And guys, if you want to make yourself a note, okay, this right here, guys, that's the ground. Okay, so that's the ground. All right, so let's say if it's 6 meters off of the ground, so that means already right here, this is 6 meters. Well, if it's 6 meters there, then it's also 6 meters over here. Okay, so it's 6 meters off the ground. Okay, and then it says it begins to climb at an angle of elevation. So climb means that it's going to go up. So that means that really, okay, our little drone starts right here, doesn't it? It starts right here. All right, so we've got the little drone right there, and it begins to climb at an angle of elevation of 9 degrees. Well, hey guys, there's our angle of elevation, 9 degrees. Now, this is where I want to point out something to you guys and what this means. It says for the next 53.6 ground meters. Okay, the ground is horizontal. Okay, the ground is going to be horizontal. So when it says 53.6 ground meters, that means that the horizontal right here, 53.6 ground meters. That's where the meters go. Okay, all right, so we labeled the information on the triangle. Now we're going to label adjacent, opposite, and hypotenuse. Okay, and it says determine the height of the drone when it finishes climbing, because it's going to start climbing here and it's going to climb at 9 degrees and go 53.6 meters. So we want to determine what is the total height over here when the drone reaches this point. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in just on our triangle and we're going to label it. Okay, all right, this is where you guys get to tell me, okay, help me label this thing. Okay, what ratio, okay, opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse, what should I put on the H over here? Okay, what should I put over here on where my dot is? Okay, and what ratio should I put on the 53.6? Okay, let's see how you guys did. Okay, so 9 degrees is across from the H. So this is my opposite. This is my OPP. Okay, and out here where my little dot was is across from the 90 degrees. So that's my hypotenuse. And the 53.6 is going to be my adjacent, my ADJ. Okay, now we have to figure out which trig function to use. Okay, so I have the adjacent side. I want the opposite side. Okay, guys, now it's your turn. If we have the adjacent, we want the opposite. Which trig function do you think we should use? Hey, did you guys say that you should use tangent, right? Because if I were to write down SOHCAHTOA over here, okay, opposite and adjacent, that is the tangent function. Okay, so we're going to use the tangent function. Okay, so let's go set this up. All right, so we have the tangent of what? What should I put after the trig function? Yeah, I'm going to put the angle measurement. So the tangent of 9, which that is our reference angle, equals, okay, guys, which one of the following ratios is the correct one to use? Okay, did you guys say H over 53.6? That's opposite over adjacent. Okay, all right, so now we've got it set up. All right, guys, now go solve for H. Go work this through and solve for H. And then, now, I just want you to tell me what you get for H, not for the height of the drone, not for the total height. I just want you to tell me, what do you get for H? All right, how'd you do? Okay, the height, which is just represents right here. And actually, I'm going to highlight what that H represents. That represents from this point to this point. So right here, that is 8.48. But to find the total height of the drone, it was already 6 meters above the earth, wasn't it? Okay, so in order to find the total height of the drone, we have to add the 6 meters. Okay, so we have to add the 6 meters that we started with. Okay, so that means that the total height of the drone is 14.48 meters. Now, is that our final answer? No, because guys, if you read the instructions, it says to round to the nearest tenth. Okay, so what is our final answer for the height of the drone? Did you guys remember your units? Did you remember to round? Okay, 14.5 meters. Okay, 14.5 meters. Okay, so guys, again, take a look at this. Remember, if you already start 6 feet up, or 6 meters up, then you have to add that to the height to get the total height. Okay? All right. Hey, you know what? Let's do another one together. Let's go down and do number 11 together. All right? All right. I told you guys that I was going to do one with you that had angle of depression. So here we go. Okay, here's how we're going to set this up. Okay, this says the length of a staircase is 9 feet and it has an angle of depression of 37 degrees. Okay, first of all, guys, I want you to think real life. Okay, so which side would be the staircase? Is it going to be the horizontal side, the vertical side, or the slanted side? Which side in real life would represent a staircase? Yeah, guys, a staircase is slanted, isn't it? Okay, a staircase is slanted. So, first and foremost, our staircase over here is 9 feet. Okay, and then it says it has an angle of depression of 37 degrees. That means that if I start up here at the staircase, okay, and I'm going to actually zoom in right here. The top of the staircase, and depression means it goes down. That means that this angle right here is 37 degrees. Okay, notice that is outside of our triangle. Okay, now earlier I said it, that the angle of elevation and the angle of depression have to be what? Yeah, the angle of elevation and the angle of depression are going to be congruent, right? So if this is the angle of elevation, okay, which by the way, let me redraw this so it looks halfway decent, 37, okay, degrees. All right, so the angle of elevation and the angle of depression are congruent. So now I have an angle that's inside my triangle. Okay, now I can go through and I can label opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse. Well, first of all, I need to figure out what else did I miss, okay? So, well, let's see. We labeled the given information on the triangle. We're going to label the opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse. Okay, let's do that now. Okay, so I want you guys to tell me, what should I label, okay, on the horizontal side? Opposite, adjacent, or hypotenuse? Okay, what should I label on the vertical side? Opposite, adjacent, or hypotenuse? Okay, what about on the 9 feet? Is that opposite, adjacent, or hypotenuse? All right, let's see how you guys did. Over here, the vertical side is opposite of my angle. The 9 feet is opposite of the 90 degrees, so that's my hypotenuse. And the horizontal side is my adjacent. Okay, so your picture should look like this. Okay, all right, now we're going to start with what we know. Okay, so we know right here, we know the hypotenuse. The question is, what do we want? Well, what side are we really looking for? Okay, what do you guys think? Are we looking to find the opposite side or are we looking to find the adjacent side? All right, hey guys, it says find the horizontal distance of the staircase. So that means that I'm looking for the adjacent side. Horizontal is always flat. Okay, so I have the adjacent, or excuse me, I have the hypotenuse. I want the adjacent. So which trig function should we use? Did you guys write down your SOHCAHTOA? Okay, did you look? Okay, we have hypotenuse and adjacent. Well, hypotenuse and adjacent is from the C, which is cosine. So we're going to use cosine now. Okay, so having said that, hey guys, which one of the following, okay, equations is the correct way to set this problem up to solve for the adjacent side? How'd you do? Okay, hopefully you said, hey, Miss Smith, we're using cosine, so we got to use cosine of the angle equals our adjacent is x, hypotenuse is 9. All right, so now that you've got it set up, guys, go solve for x and tell me, what do you get for the horizontal distance of the staircase? Did you guys remember to round to the nearest tenth as it said in the instructions? And did you remember your units? Hopefully so. Okay, guys, remember, if it has units on the side length, you need to include the units in your answer. Okay, so ladies and gents, we have worked out some problems that used sine or cosine or tangent. We've talked about the angle of depression, the angle of elevation. Now it's your turn. Okay, during class, you're going to finish this up and ask questions when you have them. All right, guys, until later, adios.